Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to season 6 of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirsty Smith, a holistic integrative doctor specializing in fertility and hormone health. If you're looking for insights into hormones, fertility, and all things related, you've come to the right place. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the field of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're finally going to help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get and stay pregnant and eliminate all your hormone-related symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season, we're focusing closely on fertility and hormone health with an amazing lineup of expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, bringing you stories and advice that will support you in your fertility journey. We're here to lift your spirits, give you a virtual hug and inspiration, as well as empower you to take charge of your fertility and your health. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being an amazing listener. So now, let's get started on your road to transformation. Let's start piecing together your hormone puzzle one step at a time. On today's show, we have Kirsty Smith of Natural Rays Wellbeing Consultancy. She is a functional medicine health coach specializing in hormone and gut health. She works with individuals and employers to support them to better understand their hormones and how to work with them so that they can optimize their fertility for consistent energy, better mood, less brain fog, and the enthusiasm to live life they have worked so hard to create. Today, we're going to talk to Kirsty about endocrine disrupting chemicals and how these are destroying your fertility. Now, let's welcome Kirsty to the podcast. Hey, Kirsty, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited. Like I was saying offline, I think this is going to be a great conversation. A lot of our audience is curious about acupuncture and how we can work with that and endocrine disrupting chemicals. So we're going to get into it. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite topics to talk about when it comes to that kind of hormonal puzzle, because in my experience, I feel that, endocrine disrupting chemicals don't get much airtime in kind of everything else that we have going on. So I'm really glad that we can shed some light on it, and it can feel like a heavy subject. So I would just say take it with a pinch of salt as well. And hopefully you'll leave this podcast thinking, okay, I have the knowledge, but I can also have some small things to do at home that's going to have a really big impact. So yeah, I suppose caveating it that it can seem like quite a heavy subject.
Yes. And I love, again, that we're talking about this because this is one of the first places that I start with patients is just toxins and how do we detox and how do we avoid in the first place. So it's all so important. And I'm so glad that we can have this discussion. Yeah. So tell us a little more about you. How did you get into this work and what made you want to focus on these chemicals and toxins?
Yeah. So I think it's quite similar with a lot of people that I meet who are in these kinds of roles. I had my own hormonal struggles. So as a 27-year-old, I developed adult acne after never having experienced it as a teenager. And on top of that, I was having brain fog, chronic fatigue. I was training a lot at the gym, but just nothing, like everything just plateaued. My mood plateaued, my sex drive. And I just thought, wow, I'm not even like 30 and I feel like absolute rubbish. So I went on a bit of a journey. And at the time I was living in Australia, in Sydney. And I don't know if with anybody else maybe that struggled with their skin, often we look for topical things that can help. So I was using, anything that had acne on it, you name it, I was trying it. And then living in Australia, I came across a natural makeup artist, and I'd never heard of anybody like that before. So I was just really intrigued. And then I saw that she was running a workshop and I went to it and I absolutely had my mind blown because I started to understand the ingredients in the products that I was using, and that actually maybe they weren't as supportive for my skin, because on a hormonal level, they weren't particularly supportive. So most other things when it comes to my lifestyle, I would say was pretty dialed in. My nutrition was pretty good. I probably wasn't doing great on stress management, but the environmental toxins piece was like, I'd never heard of it. And overnight, I just went all in on it, and I changed a lot of my products, and my acne really started to improve. And I just thought, wow, there is something in this. And I just dived into that. And that was the start of my journey. So at the time, I was working a very stressful job in construction. And then I thought, I want to know more about this. I want to know more about my body. I want to know more about what impacts my body. So then that led me on a bit of a journey to then train as a functional medicine health coach, so that I could empower other people with knowledge about the various things that impact us, but also, most importantly, the sustainable and simple strategies that we can put into place that have such a powerful impact.
I love that. And I love that you took your story and turned it into your passion and, pursued this career to help others. That's such a beautiful story. And thank you for sharing that. I feel like so many women listening can relate and are so excited to learn from you. Yeah. So let's talk about just basics of what are endocrine disrupting chemicals. Can you give us just a broad definition so everybody understands, what we're talking about?
Yeah, of course. So as the name suggests, they are chemicals that are in our environment that impact the endocrine system. So our amazing system of different organs and chemical messengers that all talk to one another. But I suppose for a lot of us here in this conversation, maybe the things that impact our sex hormones are what are the hormones that impact our fertility. So our thyroid, those types of things. These particular chemicals have a direct impact on that endocrine system. And a lot of them are known as xenoestrogens, so synthetic estrogens in our environment that mimic our hormone estrogen, but give us none of the benefits. They give us all of the impacts of what we then experience as maybe excess estrogen symptoms, but we don't have the benefits to our brain health or our muscle development or our bone health that estrogen provides us.
Gotcha. And so talk to us about where would we find these? Are they in, I think you talked earlier about makeup. Where else might these be hiding that we really haven't thought about?
Yeah, and this is where it can get a bit scary. So again, just know. I think deep down we do know that there's a lot of things in our environment that sometimes are out of our control. So, it can be in the food that we buy. A lot of products are sprayed with pesticides and, residue. And then that means that there's pesticides going into our water supply, potentially, in the air that we breathe. A lot of us are living in cities and different things like that. But then on a more personal level, so sometimes, when we think of our external environment, we're like, well, there's not much there that I can control. So that's why a lot of the work that I focus on is very much like what's in our home environment and what can we control. So again, in terms of what's in our home environment that could potentially have these chemicals is the personal care that we use. Everything. If you think of the products that you put on from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, and as women, naturally, we typically use more. The things that we're eating, the water that we are drinking, and, what we are inhaling from maybe like air fresheners or what we're cleaning our clothes or even our home environment with. So, when we start to think about it, we're like, oh, actually, there's the potential to be impacted by a number of different chemicals just day to day going about our business.
Sure. And there's more today than there has ever been before. I think I heard a statistic recently that said we're exposed to more chemicals in our life than our grandparents were in just 1 month of their lives. And so it's like, what in the world? Or I think I said that backwards. We're 1 month, we're exposed to more than they were in their lives. So it's just crazy. They're everywhere. And like you said, there's not a lot we can do with, our environmental chemicals, the gases and the air quality and all of those things. But what we can do is what's in our own homes. And so I'm so glad that you kind of laid all of that out. And I know this is also a loaded question, but is there any thoughts around why these chemicals are even legal? Because I know in other countries they're not. And so why does the US, especially the US, allow them to be, in these products? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think it comes down to the point that you just made there. There are so many more chemicals now than there ever were. And that industry is changing really fast, and it changes so quickly that regulation often can't keep up with it. And there's also around how we test or how we prove that the things in the products that are out for consumption are safe. And I think different countries do it differently. So, the European Union, which the UK was involved in, we still haven't had changes to like how things in the UK are done. We would say maybe they are a little bit more stringent than when you compare them to things in the US. Then you also have Japan that do things slightly differently. So there's so many variations between different places. But across the board, the field is sort of testing from like a toxicology sort of perspective. And I think for a long time, there's always that, the bigger the dose, that's where the poison is. So the more you consume, that's what's going to have the impact. But actually, when it comes to the chemicals that impact us the most and impact the endocrine system, we only need a small amount to have quite a big impact, because when it comes to the hormones that we're talking about, they actually work in relative small concentrations in the body. And a lot of these compounds are being tested in isolation. But do you just have a product with one chemical compound in it? No. It's often, we are not then testing what one person is potentially going to use throughout the day. So there's different varieties, different things in different products. So that's where the issue is really. So one chemical is being tested in isolation. Obviously, then the product is going to market being like everything in isolation has been tested. So that's really where the issue is. And that's where I suppose why these chemicals are on the shelves and nobody's sort of saying, why are they not being taken off the shelf?
For sure. And I think one good thing about now more than ever, there's so many clean brands coming to market that I feel us voting with our dollars and just choosing not to buy the products filled with chemicals, I think that's going to send a huge message, and hopefully that will ensue some change.
Absolutely. So. I think a lot of it has been consumer driven, and big brands are seeing it now. They are seeing that these more natural products are popular and people are interested in them. And there are often a variety of different reasons why somebody's interested. Personally, I'm often interested for my own health. Others are more interested from a environmental perspective. And often these brands that care for our health often go hand in hand as a brand that care for our environment. They're trying to reduce their energy consumption or like using plastic. So there's normally a few nice boxes that they tick that means the consumer is wanting to vote with them. And again, it is definitely making bigger corporations see that this is a really popular area. And you see that just by a lot of smaller brands being bought by a lot of big organizations like Unilever, for instance. I'm always a little bit dubious when that happens, but I think it's an indication of there is this popularity happening, which is really, really great to see.
Sure. I love that. And can you talk to us about greenwashing for a minute?
Mm.
No, I really want to make sure that the audience understands that even if a product looks clean, it might just be greenwashed. So talk to us about that. What does that mean and how do we avoid buying those products?
Yeah, and do you know what? I talk about this a lot with my clients, and I fall for it all the time. And there's one word that always gets me: organic.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why. I'm like, oh, it's organic, it must be good. Even on like a natural, like on a personal care product, I'm like, it's organic, it must be good. And especially when it does come to personal care, obviously with food products, especially, in the UK at the moment, like there's very stringent things, like you can't say certain things on food. But personal care, I would say, is more like the Wild West. They can say whatever they want on the marketing. They could probably even say organic, and it doesn't need to be organic.
Right.
So I just say, don't worry about what's said on the front. Don't worry about the marketing. Just try and understand the ingredients on the back. But greenwashing is essentially that there will be key buzzwords that are used that will automatically just make us think this product is good. So I just said organic. Natural is another one. I don't know if you can think of any that like come off the top of your mind, but those are the two that I'm always quite tuned into. Like they'll use words like, especially because we're in Europe, it's like bio, and you always think like, ooh, that's also organic. So they're really like, they are very clever. And there's a lot of brands here that will say made with natural fragrances. And I'm always like, oh, great. I turn the ingredients label over and all it says on there is fragrance. There's no asterisks to say that it's from natural compounds or that they're using essential oils. And I'd expect to see the compound that you then find in an essential oil. None of that. So I often I love it. I just go onto Instagram, send them a DM, and I'm like, hey, can you just send me the what essential oils or what natural fragrances you're using in this product? And they're like, oh no, it's not natural fragrances. And I'm like, that's what you say. And I see a lot of creators then sharing that they're using the product because it's all natural, and I'm like, it isn't. And this is really where, as consumers, we've really got to like not buy into the marketing and really just say, okay, what are there? And we don't need to know all of the ingredients on that ingredients label either. There are a few key ones that I'm always looking out for, and we can touch on those, because then if I see those, I pretty much know that I don't even need to look at any of the other ingredients. And then also we have really great apps now as well that help us kind of educate ourselves a little bit on the ingredients, and if that's something that we feel comfortable using.
For sure, for sure. And that's kind of similar in the US, they'll use organic. I see clean a lot. Like, what does that even mean? And even the aesthetics, they'll make it look like, it'll have plants on it, or it'll be like green and these serene colors, and you're just like, no. And I agree with you. I will turn it immediately, look on the back and see, is there anything that I can't pronounce? So even if you don't know what the ingredients are, you can't pronounce it, it's probably not something you want on or in your body. Does it have fragrance? Does it say, artificial, even colors? I've been really mindful of not using products that have artificial color because it goes in through the skin and it's an endocrine disrupting chemical. So it's being really mindful of that. And I would love to go into maybe just a few of the key buzzwords that you look for when you say, okay, I see that, I know that's a chemical. What are some of those?
Yeah, so as you've touched on there, like fragrance is the biggest one that I'm looking for, because the thing with fragrance is you see that term and they're very clever. They'll use fragrance, they might use perfume or parfum, that they'll use different words to even like make it sound a bit sexier. And you're like, that's just perfume. And so that's always the first one. And then I'm looking for, because you will find this even in natural products, like fully natural products, you will see the term fragrance, but normally then it will have an asterisk next to it to say either naturally derived or from essential oils. And that brand is normally very transparent and normally quite open with what they'll normally say what the essential oils are. Whereas with fragrance, that could mean up to 3,000 undisclosed chemicals. And the one that's of most concern when anything is in fragrance is a chemical called phthalates. And that is essentially what makes your fragrances sticky. So I grew up in a household where we absolutely loved fabric softener. I don't know, I think you call it fabric, is it conditioner?
It is. Fabric softener.
Softener, yeah. So my mum loved it. And if I smell that, it will take me back.
Yeah.
But that's the best example that I can give of phthalates in a product, because the advert for the one that we used to have at home was like, stays fresh in the cupboard for, I don't know, 8 weeks or something. And you're like, that's not normal. But that's how it works, is that it either sticks to the material or it sticks to your skin. And that is the most concerning, or one of the most concerning things that I'm personally worried about fragrance. And it also concerns me as well, especially in like more intimate products. So, you know, some tampons, I think things have got better, but tampons, pads used to have fragrance on it. Like you'd open it up and be like, why does this smell? Like toilet paper even has a fragrance. And I'm like, no. We do not want to be like wiping this on our like delicate areas. But I've even had instances with, for instance, like a condom company. And I'm like, this has a really strong smell. And they would not tell me. They just kept saying it has been tested and approved by, I can't even remember the person that they were saying that, you know, it's good because this person has said that it's fine. And I was like, you don't understand. What I'm trying to get at is like, what are these chemicals that are in it? So that's the one that I'm most concerned of. So that's one of the ones that I look for. And then in a lot of natural products, there is an ingredient called phenoxyethanol, and that's used as typically something to kind of give the product a little bit of shelf life. There's not been loads of studies done on it, but early studies kind of indicate that it could have potential endocrine disrupting properties. So for me, I just think there's plenty of products out there that don't have that, so I would choose that. So those are the two key that stand out for me in terms of products that we are using. And then also, you know, this is a different thing, but plastic in our homes. You know, I definitely grew up in an era where there was a lot of microwave meals. And, you know, that if there's one thing that say you do still heat food up in plastic, please stop, because that's going to have such a huge impact. And that's because there are lots of different chemicals in plastic, but one that we know of is BPAs. And then there's a whole new category of chemicals that are coming out because of everybody knows about BPAs. So you'll see BPA free, but it'll still be plastic. And again, where we talked about the industry changing faster than we can keep up with it, we don't actually know if these BPCs or these different variants are any better. So, you know, it can be, you know, especially if we've got a lot of like Tupperware and plastic containers in our homes. But that to me is one of the best swaps that I would do early on, is don't reheat anything in plastic. Just get a load of glass containers. If you went into my kitchen cupboard, you just see I collect jars like they're going out of fashion, because they're so helpful to just keep things in. And people often ask me like, oh, well, what about like taking my food? Can I carry things in a plastic container? Because a lot of people don't like carrying glass, for instance, which I understand. And I sort of say, as long as the food isn't hot, so say you were having like a salad and you weren't planning to like heat any of it up, fine. If that's the only option that you have, I've had a metal lunchbox. It traveled around the world with me. I think I've had it like 10 years. It was so sturdy and I love it. So I would also say like invest in those things, knowing that they are going to last you as long as you want them to last you. So yeah, those are the top ones that I would say just start there. Don't even worry about the other things. If you just looked at a few of those, you would have such a positive impact.
Sure. I love that. Such great, tips and advice there. The other thing too that I would add is take a really hard look at the beauty products that you're using, because I promise half of those you don't need and you've been sold. And so that's a really easy way to just start this process. If it feels very overwhelming to you to think, I've got to get rid of everything, to start thinking like, do I really need like 3 products for my face in the evening, and then a lotion, and then a toner, and all of these things that we're sold that we need, which we really don't. So just take a look there and see what you can eliminate, because that's an easiest way to get rid of, some toxins off the front, is just to eliminate the products you're using.
And I think that's such a great point. Like, one of the things that really sort of like slapped me in the face and made me really kind of pay attention to was just how big the market is for things that can be sold to women, and how it's sold to what typically we are self-conscious about. And I just feel like the way that social media is going as well, like with a lot of influencer type content, I'm always so dubious. I'm like, do you actually use all of these products? Like, this isn't normal. And exactly what you said, like stripping it really back, not only going to save yourself a heap of money, but it's like, do you really need to double cleanse morning and night, and all of these different types of products? And on top of that as well is like looking for that brand that you really love, and that you love them for a reason, like that they care for your health, they care for the health of the planet, and stay with them. Like we said, like voting with your dollar is so important.
Sure. I love that. I know what drives me crazy is like the Get Ready With Me, where they have like 15 different things they're using. And I'm like, what is all that even doing?
I know. Makeup now is like insane. I almost feel like I'd need to go to an actual workshop to even understand how to contour, how to like use all of these different products. I'm so basic when it comes to those things.
Oh my goodness. I love this conversation, but we do have to take a short break. So we're going to do that now, and we're going to come back and just talk more practical pieces around living toxin free and how to optimize our fertility and hormones. And so we'll do that when we come back. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Kayla Smith here. I hope you're loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back shortly, but first, let's hear a word from our amazing sponsor. Trust me, it's something that you'll definitely want to hear, especially if you're passionate about fertility and hormone health. Did you know that we have an exclusive herbal tea crafted especially for fertility, hormones, and reproductive health? This isn't just any tea. It's a nurturing blend of 5 potent herbs, each chosen for their unique ability to support fertility and hormone balance. Imagine the benefits of red raspberry leaf, nettles, chamomile, antioxidant-rich green tea, white peony, and the delightful rooibos vanilla all in one soothing cup. This delicious, nutritious tea is perfect for starting your morning or relaxing in the evening. So why wait? Head on over to our website, hormonepuzzlesociety.com/fertility-tea to support your fertility journey in the most natural and enjoyable way. Now let's get back to our insightful episode and continue our hormone puzzle journey together. Hey Kirsty, welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's talk practical tips. I know we talked about a lot in the first half, but maybe just summarize 5 things that you tell your clients to do if they want to start this non-toxic lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. So often the first thing people are like, well, where would you start? And I say, if I was doing it over again, where I would start would be home cleaning, and more often than not starting with laundry, because there's quite a few ways there that we're going to be impacted. Because it's going to be on our skin, we're likely going to be inhaling it. So that's normally where I start. And it's normally the thing that we're kind of replenishing all of the time. So again, find a really good brand that you love. There are so many now. And like we said, when I started this journey, like over 10 years ago, there was like slim pickings. Whereas I feel like now there are so many great options. And obviously, I'm sure your listeners are like international. So there's lots of different ones, and I'm sure you could name a load, but that's where I would start. So laundry and home cleaning, Normally you can, sometimes those brands kind of do a lot. They almost do like starter kits together. So that's a really great one to start. Then I would just think, okay, what is the next thing that I'm running low on? So don't feel like, it really does depend on your personality as well, and where you are in your journey. Like I said, I just kind of went, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm getting rid of stuff. Whereas some people would rather not waste things and wait until the next thing is running out. So also do that as well. Then I'm looking for always, where's the biggest bang for my buck? So what am I covering myself in head to toe multiple times a day? And that'll be different for all of us. Some people love to do fake tan. I don't, because like I said, I'm very basic and I just can't be bothered. But coming into summer now, like a lot of us, maybe if we love to go out in the sun, we'll be thinking about sunscreen. So think about those things that you are using a lot of on your body and start there as well. Then we talked about it already, but do not heat anything in plastic anymore, and use, glass is great for freezing things as well as storing things that are hot. So coming back to that plastic conversation, issues arise with potentially leaching of chemicals when there's a temperature change. So if it's hot or if it's frozen. So that's really great. Get a really nice stack of things that you can do your meal prep and things in as well. Similarly, if you love to have a water bottle, can you choose like a stainless steel one? Because again, more often than not, we'll take these water bottles with us, might leave it in a car. I've been in a sauna with people and they bring in plastic water bottles into them, and I just sort of say, oh, you might not want to. I try and say it in the kindest way possible, just because how hot it got in there. And I sort of say to them, look, I was in here the other day and I had one of those like clips in and it melted. And people are like, oh my God. So I'm not saying like, take this out of here because it's going to like mess with your hormones, but also it's just getting people to think about that. So it's the temperature change there. And I think we're on 4. So like the 5th one would be, it is really important with this conversation. Don't get too overwhelmed with it, because it really can be overwhelming. And sometimes you like look around, you're like, everything is trying to like make me ill. But actually, remind yourself that your home is the high water mark. You get to choose what comes into your environment. And to me, I was like, oh, that is such an empowering place to be in. And like everything, like any habit, just little steps, day by day, week by week. Like I said, when that one product runs out, then replace it with another. And soon enough, when you look back, you're like, wow, look how far I've come on this journey. And it is a lifelong journey, as with everything with health, isn't it? Like, it's not that we arrive at a destination and then we don't have to keep doing those things day to day. Like, I've still got things that I would like to swap in my home. My big investment this year was a water filter. So it's thinking about those things, making wish lists as well. And like when birthdays come around, Christmas, like say I'd really like a voucher for this. And soon enough, you will start to be able to do those purchases that seem a little bit, out of reach at the moment.
Sure. I love that. Such great tips. And 2, I love that you said, try to take it slow and don't get overwhelmed. I think the other side of this too is I feel like it's really unrealistic to be 100% at anything. And so I always tell people, if you have that one, obviously I want you to be 100%, but if you have that one thing that you're like, this is just my favorite thing and I don't want to replace it, maybe that's your one thing, but your overall toxic load is low. And so maybe you can make an exception with that one thing. And so
exactly. And I think that's a really important point as well, is that we're giving our body the best opportunity to detox. Our body is designed to detox. So in an overloaded system, it's going to struggle. Whereas when we're taking out lots of different opportunities, then the liver is able to actually do what it does. And I will be completely honest, when I started this journey, I was so like militant with everything, and that didn't help. It really didn't help. And I would say I've definitely softened now to my approach with everything, because I know stress is the worst thing anyway. So I'm trying to minimize the aspects where I have that overwhelm. So for instance, like a lot of pushback that I get is that, I love my favorite like perfume, and I get that. If you can't find more natural ones that you like, or an essential oil that you really like the smell of, have that perfume. Can you use a little bit less of it, but not actually put it directly onto your skin? And also where we spray it, which is here on our neck, directly onto our thyroid. And I just think, okay, just spray it onto your clothes just a little bit. And, I always do it like a window open if I'm in that kind of environment. So yeah, it is like, if there is one thing that you're really struggling to part with, just know that those small changes in other aspects are also going to have a really powerful impact.
Sure. I love that. Oh my goodness. Well, I could talk to you all day, but we do have to start to wrap up. So first, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. You were just a wealth of information, and I know our audience is going to love this show. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been so wonderful to have the opportunity. So thank you for the amazing work you do on this podcast as well.
Thank you. And before we go, I would love our audience just to get to know a little bit about you personally. So would you like to play a little game where we do that?
Yeah, sure.
So how it works, I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, and you're going to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Ready? All right. Favorite food?
Steak.
Least favorite food?
Oh, that's really hard. I find that I will literally eat most things. Do you know what? I'm not a big lover of tempeh.
Okay. Yeah, that one. I can't do that one either. Favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, Italy.
Ooh. Bucket list item that you plan to do this year?
This year,
you could pass too if you can't think of one.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
Okay, we'll pass on that one. And then last one is your favorite concert or your first concert.
My first concert was a band called Stereophonics, who are a Welsh band, and yeah, they were really great. Actually, I will go back to the bucket list, and does it count if it's already been completed?
Yeah, you could say that.
I have built my own house, which I'm now living in, and in a dream location on the coast in South Wales. So that is a bucket list, lifelong list actually, that's been ticked off.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. We built our house about 8 years ago, and there's nothing better than saying, we built this and it's exactly how we want it. Yes. That's amazing. I love that. Well, Kirsten, tell us everybody where they can find you, where they can learn more about your work. That would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So my business is called Natural Rays. So you can find me mainly on Instagram. So I'm natural_rays hormone harmony. So find me there. So yeah, if anything, any questions, if you want any brand recommendations, I'm always happy to chat. So yeah, please feel free to reach out and connect.
I love that. And any final thoughts, any piece of advice you want to leave us with?
I think we've sort of covered it, but I really do think, especially in this conversation that we're having around the hormonal puzzle, we are the best, most complicated puzzle. It's the best way I can describe it. Like, I work with a lot of women that come to me quite frustrated. Naturally, we've been doing a lot of searching. We're trying to figure out what's wrong, and just trying to flip the lens on it of like, okay, how can I look at this as like, I'm like a treasure hunt. I am like a puzzle. I am complex, but like beautifully complex. So just understanding or trying to be curious about what's my body trying to say. And I'm going to experiment with this little thing for a few weeks, for a few months, and see how that makes me feel. And I'm sure you talk about it a lot, but like consistency is really, we're not, especially with this type of work, just changing something for a week is probably not going to have the desired effect, but changing something over a few weeks and then paying attention to what signals your body's giving you is where that magic is going to happen.
I love that. Amazing. Well, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. We're so grateful for you, and we'll see you next time. So bye for now. Hey, hang on a second. Before you go, I've got some fantastic free resources waiting for you over at our website, all designed to support your journey. When I was going through my own 2 years of infertility, I wish that there had been something like this to guide me. There just wasn't. And that's why I created these resources specifically for you. And here's a little secret. The strategies and the foods that I share in these resources are the exact same ones that helped me conceive not once, but twice, even after being told that it wasn't possible. So trust me, I know these tools work. Make sure you check them out, and I can't wait for you to be my next success story. Thank you so much for joining me today, and don't forget to check the show notes of this episode. If you enjoyed our time together, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. This would mean so much to me, and it's how more people just like you can find our show. See you next week on the Hormone Puzzle Podcast.